Okay. So this class is listed as especially for youth, but anybody young at heart, I hope, is also joining. But I'm hoping to get some response with our chat and our Q&A. So, Esplins and Farnsworths, if you wouldn't mind kind of just keeping track of that. I'll try to keep track of the Q&A, and it looks like we don't have too many here on the class. But just to get started, I wanted to know how many youth are here. So if you are a youth, if you can just in the chat let me know what your name is and how old you are. Just first name is fine. And so I will give you 1 second or 10 seconds. And the chat is either at the bottom or the top of your screen. As you hit it, it will come down. Gordon is young at heart. Gordon, I am so glad that you are here. Thank you for joining us today. Anybody else here? I'm young at heart too. So, okay, well, welcome everybody. It is good to have all of you here. And so we're just doing a basic class about why to do family history and the best things to do when you're getting started. So as you can see, and as we go along again, just go ahead and put, if you have a question out there, just go to the Q&A and you can ask your question and hopefully one of us can answer it. I'm sure that we can. Okay, so right here, as you can see on the screen, we have a campfire. And that is one thing that when I got married, I had never been camping. And so I had no way to know where to start with camping. Like, what do? I even think that the first time we went, I brought a big old huge suitcase, like one that you would take on an airplane. And those of you who are seasoned campers know that it's usually a duffel bag. You don't need as many clothes as you think. And you want something that's easy and portable to get around. So I, not knowing this, of course, had this huge suitcase, and I think I brought things like a curling iron and a blow dryer and everything that I might normally use to get ready for the day or just in my usual life at home. And obviously that did not work very well camping because we were in kind of a remote campsite. And so there was no electricity, and I just was there with my big suitcase, and it was not a whole lot of use to me. So luckily, as I did it, I was able to learn more about how to pack for camping and what are the best things to take and what are the most things that are the most useful to me. So when we think of that in relation to family history, we're just thinking about kind of a camping trip. What are we going to pack? What tools are we going to need? And what are going to best fit our purposes? And so to me, the best tool has been the help of my ancestors. And so I want you to think about that. One of your ancestors that has been very influential in your life, and someone that has helped you become a better person. And when I think of family history, I think of this. I specifically think of my grandparents and all that they taught me and all the sacrifices they made for me. And so this here is a lovely painting by Brian Kershishnik, and I share it almost every time because I just want us to remember the reason that we are doing family history. It is to connect with our ancestors and learn more about them, but also to learn more about ourselves in the process. And so I love this beautiful image of this lady. She kind of looks like she's praying, or maybe she's deep in thought, and her ancestors are there trying to help her, either help her get through a tragedy or maybe just help her because she's confused. And that is indeed, in my experience, those are some of the blessings of doing family history. So, um, the prophet Joseph F. Smith once said, "Our fathers and mothers, brothers, sisters, and friends who have passed away from this earth may visit their relatives and friends upon the earth, bringing messages of love, warning, reproof, or instruction to those they had learned to love in the flesh." And of course, being part of the BYU Family History Library, we do believe in our faith that our ancestors continue to live on and that they are seeking to help us here on earth. And so I'd like you to think back again to that influential person and think about what is something that you could do to help that person. And I hope you're thinking, wow, family history, that is something I could do, is to gather my family and to strengthen relationships. Okay, so this is so amazing. I read a few articles about family history, and again, this is a faith-based class, and we do believe that our ancestors are living on. So whatever your faith is, I hope that you can find some inspiration from these. But listen to the blessings that we are promised from family history. And these are from church leaders. We are promised the power to learn, increase joy in every other aspect of our life. So, those of you out there that may be having trouble with school or friends, family, work, anything that you may be struggling with or having difficulty with, you are promised that you will have increased joy in every aspect of your life. And that is an incredible blessing. And so we all should be doing family history. We will be forever linked together with our family. We will have a true witness of the afterlife, increased testimony of the Savior, a more meaningful patriarchal blessing, protection from the adversary, power to be sanctified, power to repent, and power to withstand temptation. I think that any of those by themselves is a wonderful and valid reason to do family history, but especially that we will have increased joy in every other aspect of our life. So I encourage you to set aside some time and think about how you can do family history and have that joy in every aspect of your life. So here we have a lovely family tree. This is a family tree, which was painted by Norman Rockwell, who is one of my favorite artists. And my family, we had this big Norman Rockwell book. It was a coffee table book that sat in our family room always. And I remember as a little girl all the way up to a teenager, and I think I've been given the book now, so I love looking in that book. But this is one of my favorite paintings. I love this family tree. Look at how interesting it is. And I mean, not all of our family trees will look like this, of course, but we have interesting trees, all of us. In this one, you can see a pirate. It looks like you can see a minister and his wife. You can see a soldier. There you have a cowboy. I mean, it's just, I love it. I love how it shows how we're all linked together and how all of these different people have made us who we are. So I'm encouraging you to plant your family tree. So start your tree. And to do that, you need to do a little bit of gardening. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to plant the seed. And most likely, if you are here in this class, then you have a bit of a seed. You have a bit of a desire to do your family history. So that is perfect. So now all we need to do is water and fertilize that seed. So I recommend that your biggest help to doing family history is to pray for help and direction, because we have so many ancestors that have um, that have come before us. How do we know where to start? But they know, and they will guide us as we pray and ask where we should start with our family history. So I always encourage to make prayer a matter of your family history work. And then fertilize your seed, learn more about your family history, and get your hands in the soil. So let's get in there, dig in there, and learn about our family. So the whole goal of family history is to bring our family together. And one way that we can do that is to get all of our family information into Family Tree. And Family Tree is a worldwide tree. It is the tree for the world. So there are billions of people on this that have lived on this earth, and the goal of Family Tree is to make this all one big tree. So you can imagine how huge this tree is. No matter where you live, what nationality you are part of this tree. So we want to make sure that we have our information into this family tree so that we can have our part of the tree represented. And that's where you can start with your family history. So, the goal of Family Tree is to have one complete, accurate record for each person who has lived on the earth. So, if we think of each person maybe as a leaf, we want to make sure that that person's leaf is on the tree and that everything is right, because that is so important to represent these people and to represent them as correctly as possible. If you think about it, a few years from now, you may have grandchildren that are doing family history, and you want to make sure that they have your name right. They have your birthplace, your birth date correct, your parents, your family. You want to make sure that you are correctly represented. So that is the big goal. Okay, so here is the thing about Family Search. Everybody can use it. And so because of that, if a person is on Family Search and they are not living, that means anybody can find that person and add information to that person. And sometimes people might change information that you have, or they might put something that you know is incorrect. And that's okay. You can just go ahead and change it back. But the most important thing to do is to be a detective, is to research and find official documents, or not official documents, maybe copies of documents, but to have your information validated by some kind of a source. So, in other words, I don't want to just think, oh, I think my mom was born December 18th of 1950. And it's much more accurate for me to go, I better go find her birth record and make sure that that is correct information. So we want to make sure that we have correct information in the family tree. And so here is how we are going to start. So we're going to pretend like we're we're packing for a camping trip. So just like I took my big suitcase and my curling iron and my hair dryer, which really those were not useful, although they are in the real world, but in that situation, they weren't. So we're going to talk about things that are useful in doing family history. The first is to write down what you know. So I know I said before that we don't want to just put things on the tree from our brain, but it's good to take a piece of paper or your phone or your laptop or anything and write down what you know. What do you know about your relatives? What are their names? What do you think their birthplaces and birth dates are. Who are their children? What do you know? So that's a good place to start. Just figure out what you do know. The second is to gather documents you already have. And this can be paper or digital. So this might be asking parents or grandparents, aunts, uncles, anybody, especially of the older generation in your family. And that will help with what you know. So let's say I thought that my grandmother's birth date was January 10th, 1923, but I wasn't really sure. And I talked to my mom about it, and she was able to give me my grandma's birth certificate and prove that that really was the right date. So that's why documents are so important, um, just so that you can verify that you have correct information. And then the next is to ask family for help. And this is where the youth can really, really do a great work. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Okay, so I want you all to, somewhere on a piece of paper or somewhere digitally, record the full names of both of your parents. And I will give you just a minute to do that. Okay, that's usually a pretty easy one. Usually we can do the full names of our parents. Do you know their birth dates? Write that down if you do. Okay, now, do you know the full names of your 4 grandparents? Try that one. And then extra points if you know their birth dates. Okay, how did you do on that? All right, I bet you know what's coming. What are the full names of your 8 great grandparents? And if you know their birth dates, then you win the award. I don't know what the award is, but it's big and it's good. You're going to want it. Okay, how did you do on that? Can you write down the names of all of your relatives, the ones that we just went through here? Some are easier, but really when you think of it, this is not too far back. And many of us still have grandparents and great grandparents that are living. And so you can see that it gets harder and harder as it goes back. And that's why it's really important to make sure that we get any information or documents out of our oldest living relatives so that they're not lost. All right, so here is where I suggest you start. This is a really easy and fun thing to do. I think it's really fun. And you can do this digitally online. Also, there are pedigree charts that you can find that you can download and type them online. I like to do it the old-fashioned way with a pencil, but I encourage you to fill out an empty pedigree chart. Now, a pedigree chart is 4 generations of a family. So this is just what I just asked you. So you can see we have you as number 1. The second are your parents. The next row are grandparents. And then the last are great grandparents. So now fill that out as well as you can. I recommend using a pencil. And you can get this chart right here if you go to Family Search. And maybe one of our lovely missionaries can put that up, but it's use appropriate forms on Family Search. if you go to Family Search, you can find almost every form that you need. But a pedigree chart is a great way to see just in one snapshot your family 4 generations back. So I definitely suggest that you do that. So then after that, I'm going to go back and we're going to talk about this. We have a family group sheet. Now, a family group sheet is, if you look at this pedigree chart, if you see number 1 is you, number 2 and 3, those are your parents. So each couple on here, so your parents, your grandparents, and your great grandparents, for each of those couples, you are going to fill out a family group sheet. And this is a snapshot, a little bit more detailed, quite a bit more detail of each individual family on your family tree. So if this were for your grandparents, you would write your grandparents. You can see the husband and the wife's name, each of their children, and it asks you their name and their birth date, their birthplace, whether they're married, if they've died, whatever. It gives a lot more detail. And the good thing about that, what I really like about that, is you can kind of see where you're missing information. And hopefully you can fill that much information out about your family. If not, you've got some work to do. I find that sometimes it gets hard. I might know who the great great grandparents are, but it's hard to find all of their children. And so it's kind of it's a challenge. It really is. And there are lots of tools that you can use as you're learning this. But I suggest filling out a family group sheet so that you can see what information do you have, where do you have holes, what do you really need to find out. You might think, oh, these great grandparents, I only know one of their children, and I don't know anything else about them. So you can look and say, oh, well, that's kind of a good place to start because I have the least information on them. And then I suggest using a research log. You can design your own and make it anything that you want. But for each family group sheet, each family, you can even do it for each person if you would like. But for each sheet, you can keep track of where you looked at things and what you found there. Because a lot of times with family history, you may be on one website and then go to another website and think, oh, I found something, but it might actually be the same record. And also, it's good to remember that the websites are adding records all the time. So we have Ancestry and Family Search, My Heritage. We have so many sites that we can use to look up family history, and they're always adding more information. So it's good to see if you've searched something to maybe go back a year later and search again and see if there's anything new. But basically, you just want the person's name, the date, where you searched, and what you found. And you might want to even say, this is what I found, and then have another column saying, these are my conclusions. This is what I think I learned about my family. So a research log is really, really helpful. And again, you can do this digitally, or you can do it on paper and having it connected with your family group sheets. Okay, so once we have our papers all filled out and we figured out what we already know, we are going to gather documents that we have. Now, a lot of us, and especially if you are a youth, you're probably not going to have a lot of documents. It's probably going to be maybe in a family file somewhere, or it might be, at the county courthouse or whatever. But it's a good thing to try to find documents which validate names and dates and places, because that is a pretty official, pretty the best way really to verify information. And again, we're trying to get accurate information. So this kind of paperwork, the documents, it might be hanging on the walls of your grandparents or in a photo album of your grandparents or maybe an old photo album you have sitting around your house. And this right here, it's one of my favorite things. This was hanging on the wall of my grandparents. And this is my grandfather's parents. So these are my great paternal great grandparents. And this is a decorative marriage certificate. So it's not, the official one that is stamped. And if I wanted to get a copy of it, it wouldn't look like this. But even though it's decorative, look at how much information we can find in this. We have their names and where they lived. We have Benjamin Freeman and Daisy Bell Redding, and they both lived in Elkhart, Indiana. They were united in matrimony. They were married. And then we have when, which is the 30th of June in Elkhart, Indiana, and 19, I would have to put better glasses on this. It looks like 1916. And then we have the witnesses and we have who married them. So just from that, we can find so much information. Well, already I've got the full names of my grandparents, and I've got where they were married, when they were married. And so if I wanted a more official document, then that would really give me a lot of information to search. So sometimes when we see things like this, we might not consider them an official document, and it's not official, but we can get so much information. So from this, and I know that a lot of times my grandparents love to cut out newspaper clippings and save those. And those are great because you can learn so much information from those too, and then try to find official documents. Okay, so this is such an important step. Ask family for help. So I want you to think of your oldest living relatives. Those are the ones to start with. Um, I I am so glad that I talked to my grandfather before he passed away. And I did an interview with him. Again, if you go onto Family Search and just type in the search how to interview a family member, you will get many, many ideas and questions that you can ask and how to record it, what to do. And so I encourage you to find those and think maybe beyond what is the norm. So you might want to interview a grandma, but if your grandma tells you all she knows and maybe you find that maybe there's more information that you could get, then maybe you could ask a grandma's sister or a brother. So think of your relatives that might not be the typical ones. And of course, the typical ones are the easiest to start with. But start with those relatives and then build out as much as you can. And it's so easy. You can just call up and ask them, hey, can I come visit? Ask them some questions. And usually people love to talk about their lives and their memories. And I have found this to be a wonderful and positive experience. And it really, really brought me closer to my relatives. So I encourage you to do that. Make a list of who's here and who would you like to who do you think could maybe tell you more about your family? Okay, so the next thing that you're going to do is set up a family search account and enter all your information. And it's pretty easy to do. There are a lot of tutorials out there. If you just Google how to set up a family search account and how to start a family search tree. And we have a lot of, in our archives at the BYU Family History Library, we have some wonderful teachers that have taught about that too. It's just beginning with family search. How do you start and what do you do? So remember that we want to get our information onto the worldwide family tree so that all of the leaves that represent our family are on that tree and that they're accurate. And so I encourage you all to do that. Um, I wanted to just point out that if you want to learn more, this is a great resource. It's called The Family History Guide. And the website is actually The Family History Guide. And if you go here, you can set up an account and everything is free. You can see right here, you can get started. There is a video, a tour of exactly what they do. But basically, it is a family history university. They give you information and teach you and show you and allow you to experience how to use all different kinds of websites and how to really benefit from all of the information that is out there. And it condenses it down into a nice, easy way to understand. And it's really fun. So I encourage you all to try the Family History Guide. I think you'll really, really like it. And here we have our BYU Family History Library. You are already in a Sunday class today, but we also have free classes and webinars. If you want to look at all of the things that we offer, you can just click the button on the very front. There is so much that you can learn here. We have webinars, instructional videos, tutorials, and not only that, but if you are in the Provo area, you can come to the Family History Library and get information and help. And so I encourage you to do that if you would like to. And we also have our library chat, which is really nice. So even if you're not near, then you can chat with a missionary and ask questions, and someone is there to help you, which is wonderful. So don't let anything stop you. Even if it's a small question, you can just reach out to us, and we are able to help you with that. Roots Tech is another wonderful resource. And if you just go to Roots Tech, just search it in your Google search bar, then it'll bring up the Roots Tech website. And you can search for different subjects. These are all classes that were taught at a yearly family history conference. And so it's held every year. And this year was virtual, and all the classes are available. So this is a great place to go and learn more about family history and what to do and how to do it. That's what I really like about it. Okay, so I already talked here about the familyhistoryguide.com. And then we talked about our virtual help desk and our family history library free classes and webinars. In those classes and webinars at the BYU Family History Library, Catherine Grant is a wonderful teacher, and she teaches a family search basic series if you want to know exactly how to get started with family search. And she's just wonderful in how she explains it. And so those are all recorded, and you can go find those in the archives. Now, I also recommend that you go to Family Search and use the Research Wiki. And it is under Search. There's a little search button. And you can say anything you want, like, how do I start family history? How do I start a tree? How do I enter a name into a tree? It will tell you everything that you need to know. You just might have to do a little searching around. So I encourage you all to become students of family history by using the Family History Guide and by seeking out more instruction on how you can be a better family historian so that you make sure that your family is preserved and that their memories are kept for all of the world to see.